Hey, it's KMK. Now, for an episode 9 of Game of Thrones, we expect some brilliant, awesome, amazing shit for the episode, as we have so much hype and so much to live up to from all the other episode 9s we've had, and they pulled it off so well.
It always seems a bit abstract, doesn't it? Other people dying.
Okay, so we start the episode off with this really ironic scene from Dany. Now, don't get me wrong, I really enjoyed how Tyrion managed to convince her to go on his side with his intelligence, but I think what Dany did was really weird at first. Now, if we go back to the end of Season 5, where Dany was in the pit, now surrounded by people that wanted to kill her, and Drogon lands in, burns a few of them, she jumps in the back and flies away, never return until this point here, right? And she expects Meereen to be a utopia? She left Tyrion, Missandei, and Grey Worm in a very terrible position, with no help whatsoever. She should not expect a brilliant place to return to. So Daenerys decides to listen to Tyrion's brilliant advice and go with diplomacy. Now, I've consistently driven home the point that Game of Thrones has this anti-war theme to it, and this really reflects that. Like, the way that she wanted to conquer and burn them all was a lot of what the fans wanted from Daenerys. She wants him to be this brilliant conqueror that comes and smashes the enemy out and just kills everyone to take her throne, but that's not the way things get done. That mentality is exactly what made the Man King go absolutely batshit crazy and him get usurped. So instead of doing this crazy warring of destroying them all, she just chooses one unlucky ship and burns the living shit out of it. Now, there's 2 points of controversy about this scene. There's the Sons of the Harpies and the Dragons. Now, a major criticism of the Sons of the Harpies were that they were inactive and not really fighting for no real reason before this point because they were funded by the Masters. But I believe the Sons of the Harpies did not fight to be able to make Tyrion and Varys and the people ruling Meereen believe that the Masters had taken the bait and were not going to betray them, and so that this attack was a lot more surprising. They could prepare for it, and it worked pretty well until Dany showed up with a whole bunch of dragons and a huge Dothraki army. And then we have the dragons who broke out, and it's like, what? They could have broken out ages ago. When did they do that? Now, some people say that the dragons had this mother's call of war, and Drogon flying around, and it's kind of, gave them an energy boost to break out and do what they did. But I feel like it's a little bit of giving too much to the showrunners, so I can give you that one. Also, did anyone notice how Dany seems to really mistreat ambassadors? She doesn't really understand the full concept of ambassadors. Okay, now we move on to some of the most frustrating, shocking, exhilarating, and action-packed, amazing thing we've had in Game of Thrones history. Now, constantly I was cringing throughout this entire thing about how the miscommunication between him and Sansa and the Vale and his armies, his men, and his people, and the true understanding of what everyone had on that side, not working together led to such terrible things happening, and it made me like, oh, the entire way through. Like, for an example, let's look at Sansa and Jon. They really could have communicated about that Vale thing. That's really obvious. But the other things they didn't communicate were about how Ramsay uses manipulation and anger tactics. She tried to do that, but she was terrible. Jon gave her the perfect opportunity to be able to relay the information. She's like, we need more troops. She's like, how? How we get some more troops? Tell me how we get some more troops. And she knew exactly how she's going to get more troops. The Vale army. But she said, I don't know. Now we'll come on a little bit later in this video of why I think that Sansa and Littlefinger did what they did. But for now, we'll move on. So Ramsay and Jon Snow get to kind of size each other up. They have this brief conversation that really leads to nothing apart from the battle still continuing on. And we kind of get this measure of the two characters and how they relate together. Jon and Ramsay will always a mix that people like to see, because they're kind of like the parallels of each other. They're both bastards, but one's like a cruel, manipulative torturer, and one's like this honorable Ned Stark's son. Also, something that was pretty interesting was that conversation between Melisandre and Jon. Now, their relationship had really never been defined well until now, and that kind of made that very simple distinction. Like, I serve you because R'hllor wants me to, and that is why. I believe you Azor Ahai because R'hllor wants you to be, and so I will serve you for the purpose R'hllor has given you. And that moves on to the second theme that the show really drives through, about this whole faith and religion being bad, and they really demonstrate that really well with the faith and the militants and the High Sparrow and shit, but this also reflects how stupid Melisandre is for her religious belief and how retarded she sounds saying this kind of things. Like, you could see Jon didn't want to get in this conflict with her, but he was kind of like, what the fuck are you talking about? Thanks for the upbeat. Okay, so we move back to Marine and Dany, and we get this tense kind of conversation and agreement between Theon, Tyrion, Dany, and Yara. Now, I call that Yara and Dany would get along really well. They have this really badass chick mentality going between them two, and I do like some of the conversation and parallels that they had between them. But the main thing they pointed out was that kind of cheeky, like,
I'd never demand, but I'm up for anything, really.
now, to be honest, I could talk about all the brilliant shots and scenes and why everything happened and stuff, but what I really want to focus on is the why it all happened. Now, the biggest thing that really hits people was like, this all could have been avoided, they think. Oh, the Vale army was about to arrive. They could just waited a bit longer. It was all Jon's fault for antagonizing to that trap. It was all terrible. But what if I told you this wasn't just the consequences of miscommunication, but the deliberate choices of characters like Sansa and Peter Baelish? Now, Sansa knew the character of Ramsay extremely well and tried to convey that a bit to Jon, but not convincingly backing it up with what she knew. She knew about the Vale, she knew about Ramsay's army, she knew about Jon's army. She was in the situation that we were in, that she knew all the facts that she needed to do to drive home the perfect battle plan. But instead of putting forward the Vale army, putting forward a brilliant plan to be able to destroy them all, she says, I don't know, and then goes to Littlefinger, sits up on a hill, watches Jon's army get slaughtered just to bring them in the right time so that Peter Baelish's army has no real struggle, has a perfect wipeout of their troops, and is in the best position to be holding the north. Now you may be thinking, oh no, that's a terrible decision. Why would you do that when you could just help them out from the beginning and crush Ramsay's army? The thing is, if Ramsay knew the Vale army was there, he would have never left Winterfell. You know how at the end he was kind of like, we'll make a siege, they can't possibly take us, and then one breaks down the door. If he had his full army in Winterfell, camped out, ready for a siege, one would never be able to destroy that gate. They'd have full controls, tons more barriers, and men just to pummel him down before he could get there. And the Vale would have to siege or starve them out. And with winter coming and it being the north, there's no way they could pull that. The only way that they could defeat Ramsay was baiting him out of Winterfell with his army into a stupid trap with Jon's destroyed, messed up army. And Sansa had to sacrifice a lot for that. She had to potentially sacrifice Jon, Jon's army, and Rickon. Now I may burst your bubble here, but Sansa is not a kind character anymore. She's been brought up and trained by people like Littlefinger to be thinking strategically and politically to what will benefit her and help out the things in total, and Rickon stood in her way to being queen and ruler. Now before you flame me, I'm sure if she could save Rickon, she would, but she knew that Rickon had to be destroyed. Like Ramsay had Rickon, that's sad, we have to deal with this and move on. If Rickon has to die, we might as well put it to a use. So I believe that Sansa fucked over Jon, fucked over Rickon, and made her plan with Peter Baelish to gain the north. It worked, they got Winterfell, everything's great, Ramsay's dead, but what a cost it was. What theme did we get from that? War is bad. Now Sansa and Jon may have got Winterfell, they may have killed Ramsay, but the absolute slaughter, mayhem, death, and sadness, and just amount of just absolute terribleness that happened in that battle just makes it seem almost pointless. And that is the story of episode 9, Game of Thrones, season 6. Sansa is politically moving, manipulative, and able to think soundly of how to defeat her enemies. War is bad, faith is bad, there's always another way. It's time to rise together and fight the threats that really face us all. And that, my friend, is why I fucking love this show.